Hello and welcome to another 7 stories in nearly 7 minutes. And this week, well, many of you already know that here I am living in beautiful Cornwall, right down in the tip of the southwest part of England. And for those of you that are watching from abroad, it's that peninsula, you know, the foot off the end of England. That's where I am, right down in Cornwall. And it would seem that Cornwall have been a little bit too ambitious. So let's look at story 1, which is from the BBC, and it says now Cornwall Council set to delay their net zero target to 2045. Oops, that's a surprise, isn't it? They can't actually manage net zero. Nobody can. Nobody can. It's impossible. And we've all got different opinions, haven't we, on climate change? I'm sure you're beginning to know mine. But according to this article by the BBC, under the new plan, Cornwall aims to meet 100% of its electricity demand from renewable sources by 2035. But I just want you to pay attention to this next bit, which says it targets energy performance certificates, EPC ratings of C, of all private rented and council housing stock by 2030. Now, we've spoken about this before. To get to an EPC C level, you have to have a heat pump, right? And many houses aren't going to be able to have heat pumps. They're too old, and it's going to be a very expensive and probably not in your best interests scheme to have. So we're looking at heat pumps, and this is quite worrying, so keep an eye on that. But I want to stay in Cornwall because we have a population of around 500,000, and in the summer we get probably 5 million visitors, well, spread throughout the year because we're a tourist area, right? So we've only got one hospital, and that's Treliske Hospital, the Royal Cornwall Hospital Trust. Now, RCHT, it says they employ about 6,700 staff, but actually if you look at it, a lot of those are part-time, and even 400 or 500 of those are volunteers, right? So you can pretty much wipe 2,000 off that. So perhaps around 4,500 to 5,000 employees. Well, according to this article in Cornwall Live, they're going to be cutting 500 jobs. That is huge. A lot of the population in Cornwall are elderly, and many don't travel very far, and yet we've only got one hospital in Truro with, minor injuries units dotted around the rest of the country. Why are they doing this? Well, they've spent too much hiring. They've overspent. What a surprise. But let's stay with that story because I want to show you actually how much they've overspent by. So story 3, here we go. They've got a 3-month job freeze because they've got a budget deficit of 3.5 million. So think on before you come to Cornwall that if you are in need of medical attention or medical care, the people that live down here, we're not able to access it. So will you be able to? Story 4 kind of leads on because what I've been saying is actually happening right now. And we're talking about no longer the National Health Service. This is the Neighbourhood Health Service. And this is where we're going to get community hubs and neighbourhood hubs dotted all over the place, in your high streets, just around the corner. You won't need to access your hospital because your hospital probably won't exist anymore. And if it does, it will be for planned admissions only and emergency care. So the healthcare leader is saying these are the next steps for the Neighbourhood Health Service, and we've got a lot of areas that are being piloted, including Cornwall. Surprise! You're going to have a neighbourhood hub. If you're thinking of where else is going to be the hubs, here's a slide that will give you all of the 43 pilot sites. So who's going to be looking after you in the future, and where will you have to go? Story 5, back to the NHS again, another BBC story here. The new NHS scheme to help people stay in work. Now, the NHS are going to help you stay in work. Yeah, that's right, you heard it. So they're starting this off in Sussex, so enjoy in Sussex. It's called Work Well, and it's going to focus on mental health. And we've spoken a lot about the mental health pandemic that we're already living through. And they're going to be focusing on musculoskeletal conditions, 2 of the leading causes of long-term sickness. So basically they just want to keep you back in work, get you in work, probably not give you any benefits while they're at it. But what is Work Well? Well, let's go and look at the government scheme for Work Well, because here it is, Work Well Prospectus Guidance for Local System Partnerships. This is a partnership that they're using, especially with Vanguard partnerships. And if you haven't heard of Vanguard partnerships, I'll probably have to do something in another Debi's Dots about Vanguard partnerships. But if you're living in different parts of the country, many areas that are fairly close together will be collaborating with one another. Wirral, if you're watching, you're one of them. So I will go more into Vanguard partnerships, but quite clearly you can see that there is a big push to get people to stay in work, to retain their jobs in work, that they don't leave, they don't need to claim DWP or sickness benefits. Let's stay on story 6 with the NHS and the app, hashtag scrap the app, hashtag app trap. Please everybody, digital health was the first key, if you like, to digital ID, and I've been trying to urge people, all 40 million of you, please, to stop downloading the NHS app. Please scrap it, because you don't actually know that the information on it is true. But now they're going to have a new family feature. Oh wow, sounds like Netflix, doesn't it? Maybe they think they are Netflix. They're going to feature this family access feature, which means that if you need care, or you've got a carer or a relative and you're not very good on apps, or you're not tech minded, or maybe you're more vulnerable, you don't have the equipment, well, your relatives or your carers or whoever will be able to access your test results through the app. They'll be able to access your appointments. They'll be able to reorder prescriptions for you. And this is all for your convenience. So my question is, for those of you that are watching who's, you know, you don't mind your husband or your wife accessing your data, and that's absolutely fine. Please bear in mind that there are going to be many families who don't want their data shared with anybody, least of all their loved ones, right? So keep a watch out for that. And story 7, very quickly, Lawrence Talon, if you're watching, are we not allowed to come to the next MHRA board meeting? In fact, when is the next MHRA board meeting? Because as of filming, we don't have one, and you can quite clearly see that you've still got the details for July. I attended that one, remember? But we don't have any more board meetings. So if you're watching MHRA, please let me know when the next one will be, or maybe we've been barred. And that, everybody, is your 7 stories in a little over 7 minutes. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. All the links to all the stories are going to be beneath in the description. And don't forget, it's all very gloomy, but it isn't. They want us to be gloomy. The antidote to all of that is keep smiling.